it's Leanne and I'm trying out a slightly different filming location today to talk to you about Dead Girls by Abigail Tarttelin, the book which simultaneously took over all of my social media and reduced me to a gibbering wreck for an entire week until I had eaten it whole and was devastated that it was over. Seriously, I just walked around the whole week being like, but book? Seriously, Leanne, it's really sunny outside. We should go outside and enjoy it. But book? Do you want something to book? The temptation to just start it again right now is strong. Dead Girls is a brand new release. It came out on May 3rd and I first heard about it over on the Bookbreak channel when Emma did an interview with Abigail Tarttelin about the book, and I immediately ran over to my computer. Seriously, it was not dignified, and requested a copy of the book because it hadn't quite come out yet and I needed my hands on it immediately. Dead Girls picks up in 1999 with Thera and Billy. They are best true forever friends and they are growing up in the era of the Spice Girls and girl power and far more freedom than we give our children these days. These girls can frequently be found wandering around their village unsupervised, playing Russian spies, trading pick and mix, and getting lost in the fields behind their houses with zero adult supervision, because that's how we rolled in 1999, guys. My parents never knew where I was, and they weren't worried about that fact. If you grew up in the UK in the 90s, I guarantee you that in the first 10 pages of this book you are going to be dripping in the nostalgia. But Dead Girls is far from a happy, clappy ride, and Thera and Billy's really innocent childhood is cut short very quickly when Billy goes missing and is found dead. That is not a spoiler. The book jacket is very clear that that happens, and it happens very, very early on in the story. And Thera decides that because she is her best true forever friend, she is a great person. In fact, she's the only person who can find Billy's killer. And so she begins a campaign to find this killer, which, as you can imagine, at 11 years old in a very small village, in the midst of a police investigation where everybody is paranoid and everybody is wondering if it is somebody from their community, is not the safest thing that Thera could have done. I can't really talk any more about the plot without giving away any spoilers, so I'm just not going to do it, and instead I'm going to tell you all of the reasons that you should read this book and all of the things that it did that I freaking loved. This book does some of my favourite things. It is completely genre bending. It doesn't necessarily sit well in mystery or thriller. It's definitely not procedural. It could be literary fiction. I found it there in the bookstore recently. Or it could be very high-end adult bent YA. This does another one of my favourite things in that it is an adult novel, a very adult novel, but it is written from the point of view of an 11-year-old child, and I never felt like I was outside of Thera's point of view. I never felt like it was an adult that was writing an 11-year-old. It was always Thera. She has such a unique voice and a unique spirit. One of my Goodreads updates at the time actually reads, and I'm going to quote it verbatim, "I want to buy copies of this and hand them out to every pre-adolescent I pass in the street because it is so important, but it is also so very not a children's book," which is nuts given how desperately kids need some of these messages. Which brings me on to the thing that I loved the most about this book, and that is the bedrock of feminism. We are frequently treated to images in thrillers and mysteries of girls and young women being killed, being raped and abused, and all of those things are absolutely trigger warnings for this book. I'll throw that out there right now. But we're frequently treated to women not being agents of their own fates and their own bodies. But we are far less frequently able to find tales of female rebellion against that and of females taking their destiny in their own hands and running with it, and that is very much what this book is. Thera is 11. She has absolutely no idea about the gender boundaries that she is about to bump up against. She has new breasts, she is heading rapidly towards her period. In fact, one of her friends has already had their period, and she's hitting that part where her friends are telling her that she's now acting babyish, that she's acting too young, that she needs to start thinking about how to hook boys and about kissing and about what she looks like, and less about imaginary friends and make-believe games which they feel like they have grown out of. She's desperately clinging on to her childhood and the make-believe worlds that she and Billy live in day to day, and all of that is ripped away from her in one act. And she's freaking angry about it. And when she asks the question, who could possibly do this? Who could possibly want to hurt Billy, because it is so out of the bounds of anything that she can understand, that she then enters into this world of gender politics, and this world where she is realising things like, there's this wonderful line in it where she's like, why does everybody think it is okay to touch me? Because the female policewoman is guiding her with a hand on her back. Her dad has a hand holding her back on her shoulder. People who are teachers, male and female, are both tapping her when they speak to her, and she's just like, why is it suddenly okay for everybody to touch me? I hate that people touch me. But it's something that she feels she has to accept. And so she starts asking questions about, what do people think it's okay to do that I don't? And that's kind of where she takes her investigation into what happened to Billy. This book is such a complex discovery of that 1999 pre-internet feminist revolution world, where a lot of the really cold hard truths that Billy is living with are things that are throwovers from the late 70s and the 80s, when women were trying to bust out of this mould and we had like a foothold on feminism, but we just couldn't quite get the message all the way home, and there were still so many men who chose not to listen. And that is the world that she's growing up in. But she's also growing up in a world with really good examples of men. There's a couple of men in this book who I think are genuinely pretty wonderful. Her grandfather is a science fiction writer, and he expects Thera to be smart, and he expects Thera to be industrious and self-sufficient, and he in no way during any of this looks down to or talks down to her. In fact, he expects her to meet him at her level, and I really love that. And I just feel like I've been crying out for a book that does all of these things, and I never thought I was going to find that in a book set in 1999 with an 11-year-old protagonist with a dead best friend who is carrying out her own investigation. I never thought that was going to be the place that fulfilled all of these holes in me about the thriller genre and the mystery genres right now, and the absolute lack of forward-thinking feminism in any of them. But it so was, and it's making me super emotional to talk about it. So let's move on to some of the other things that I loved desperately about this book. This book is a masterpiece in what to do right with a thriller or a mystery. The pacing is absolutely brilliant. This is a 436 page book, and I drip fed it to myself because the pages fly by so quickly and the events unfold in such a weird way that you're constantly making assumptions and constantly having them proved wrong. Every time I thought that I had a handle on who did what or who was really to blame in this book, I discovered that it was all crap and I was rubbish. I was a rubbish investigator, and I just should listen to Thera and let her do it because she was doing it better than I was. I held on to the characters in this book so hard. I find it so difficult in thrillers to find characters who are unique and fully rounded. Often we get a set sort of view of a character just before the bad thing happens and then dealing with the bad thing, and I never feel like I fully know them as a person. I never feel like I know what they would have done before that bad thing had happened, and that is not the case in this book. This book, I know exactly who Thera is. I know what she would have been doing with Billy had this book never happened, had the events in this book never happened. This one literally ripped my heart out and crumbled it on my clear glittery jelly sandals that my mental self was wearing in 1999. Abigail Tarttelin is just She is a master storyteller, and I literally will follow her anywhere that she takes me now. In conclusion, this is the first review that I've done in a really long time, but I was absolutely compelled to talk about this one. As soon as I finished it, I was like, I have to try and gather some thoughts to tell you guys about it. Also, this is a slightly different filming location. I've changed the angle a little bit. It lets me have more room to hold up the books. Tell me whether you like it. If you do, I think I'll stick with it for a while. It's also a little bit brighter just because of where the window is. So tell me about that too. If you have read Dead Girls, I want to talk to you now. If you have not read Dead Girls, I'm not talking to you until you buy it. No, I'm joking. I'll talk to you, but I will talk to you about it ad nauseum forever. Bye!